This is a Lowell Observatory podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to Star Stuff, a space oddity.
Hello everybody, this is Haley Osborne and welcome to another episode of Star Stuff. Today we're going to be talking about Clyde Tombaugh and I'm joined by a fan favorite over here, Kevin Schindler.
Oh yes, my mom is the president of the fan club.
Oh,
I think the only member too.
You know, that's fair. Yeah. Cool. So today we're going to be talking about Clyde Tombaugh in honor of the I Heart Pluto Festival. Do you want to say a few words about the I Heart Pluto Festival actually?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why do we have an I Heart Pluto Festival in Flagstaff? Because Flagstaff is home of Pluto.
Home of Pluto.
Pluto was discovered here by Clyde Tombaugh in 1930, and virtually every major discovery since then has connections to Flagstaff in some way.
Awesome.
The largest moon, the other moons, the atmosphere, New Horizons mission, all have ties to Flagstaff.
Yeah.
And so the I Heart Pluto Festival is to celebrate this connection, and also leading up to the 100th anniversary of Pluto's discovery in 2030.
Nice.
And so each year we do a family festival type thing where we certainly do science, because that's what we do here.
Lots of science.
A lot of fun, a lot of family activities, some adult activities like special beers, and music and food trucks up at the observatory. Our keynote speaker is an astronaut this year, Nicole Stott.
Nice.
We'll talk about discovery and exploration in space. So it's really a lot of fun, and we want it to be a keynote Flagstaff event.
Cool. Well, I'm very excited. Kevin and I are actually working together on the Special Astronomy on Tap, February 16th.
Yes.
So that'll be awesome.
And joining us will be Al Tombaugh, who is Clyde Tombaugh's son.
Exactly.
The guy who discovered Pluto. So that's going to be a lot of fun to hear his firsthand stories about his dad.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be really cool. I'm really excited. I fangirl over this kind of stuff all the time.
And we're also going to be dedicating the beer that Mother Road is making this year in the special can, which is called, I can't say yet. Not official yet.
It's not official yet?
No,
okay,
but we're close.
That's good to know because
Yes.
Dylan told me and I didn't know if I was allowed to tell people, so I haven't told
It
anyone.
hasn't been released yet. So
Wonderful.
So we're
Cool.
close.
I won't tell anyone then.
There's a great story behind it too.
Ooh,
I can't
I'm
wait
so
to tell
excited.
it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It'll be so fun. Okay. Well, if you guys are in town on the 16th, February 16th, you should come check it out. It'll be really cool.
Right. And it goes back to, I will say that the beer has a lot of connection to the guy we're talking about, Clyde Tombaugh, which he had an amazing life. And I think, so many people are excited about Clyde Tombaugh, what he did with Pluto, partly because he grew up on a farm. He's a small town guy.
I know.
And he's like anybody in this room, as well as others that, humble beginnings, but had a passion to do something. And as a kid, he studied and he learned the sky and he did some great things.
Well, we should start talking about him because I've been super excited for this episode. We've had so much snow up here in Flagstaff recently.
Yes.
And so this episode has been pushed back like 4 times, I think. Right, Nate? Like 4 times? Yeah.
About 4 times.
Well, this is part of
About 4
celebrating
times.
Pluto because it's so cold.
Yes.
Minus, 285 degrees.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It has an atmosphere at certain times. And when the planet moves further away, it gets colder, that atmosphere kind of snows down.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, it's kind of like that.
Very similar,
It feels
yeah.
almost as cold.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, I've been super excited to talk about Clyde Tombaugh. He's one of my favorite people in history. I talk about him all the time for my job, when I'm giving tours and stuff.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. So you mentioned Clyde Tombaugh grew up on a farm. He grew up on a farm in Streator, Illinois.
Streator, Illinois, which I was there once years ago.
Yeah.
The community had an event celebrating Pluto.
Aw.
And so Alan Stern, who's the principal investigator for New Horizons, they flew him in there to talk about New Horizons, which had taken off and still had years to go before the flyby. And then they brought me in to talk about the discovery.
Nice.
And then they had the parents of an astronaut, Scott Altman, his parents were there, and they had a life-size cutout of him on the stage as if he was there. And it was really cool.
That's awesome.
The Streator, I think it's like an hour from Chicago, something like that. And Doug Deacon is also from there.
Oh, cool.
Doug Deacon played for the Cleveland Browns.
Nice.
I'm from Cleveland, so.
Yes, of course. Cleveland fan over here.
But yeah, Streator, small town. And then when, I think 1922, so Clyde was born in 1906. And 1922, so he was 16 or so, the family moved to Burdett, Kansas. And that's where Clyde really fell in love with the night sky, because what's hard to do at nighttime in Kansas after dark?
Yeah.
In the middle of a cornfield.
Honestly, stare at the stars.
Stare at the stars, yeah.
No, I totally agree. And they had to move because their farm got like hit by a hailstorm, right? So they had to move in with his uncle.
It was really tough making a living. And so, there's still a lot of Tombaughs in Streeter area. In fact, when I was there giving a program, several of them came up.
Aww.
I said, we're Tombaugh, because there are several siblings and other family. But yes, they had to move. It wasn't easy farming, so they moved to Kansas. And that seemed like what Clyde might do when he grew up. But hailstorms came, ruined the crops.
Yeah.
He thought, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
It's too much dependent on weather. And so he thought of other things. He always loved astronomy.
Oh, yeah.
And he built this really cool telescope.
Oh my God, it's so cool.
And we're dedicating this
I know,
at
the iHeart Pluto Festival. I'm so excited. I got a sneak peek at it because I was in the machine shop one day and I saw it, and I like geeked out. I was so excited.
It's so cool because, you think about a telescope and you look at something on the internet that you buy at a store. He made this all himself.
Oh, yeah.
He ground the mirror himself. And the telescope, he didn't have the money to buy his own, so he didn't use money, he used ingenuity and his smarts. And so he looked around the farm and he found a flywheel from a big metal wheel and some rolled metal that was used maybe for grain augers.
Yeah.
You know how they put grain up into the top of a barn,
Yeah.
this little auger thing. And part of a Buick that his dad had that was lying around. And so he just used what he had.
That's so cool. Yeah,
made it work.
the base is like made out of a cream processor.
Yeah.
There's some like spare tractor parts in there.
It's a
Coke
really neat
can,
mix. Yeah.
like all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm really excited for the dedication of that. I think it's going to be really awesome.
And the telescope is neat because we think of the telescope up here, the one he later used to discover Pluto.
Yeah.
That we nicknamed the Pluto Discovery Telescope. That telescope is really about the discovery of Pluto. This one that Clyde built is really about the guy who made the discovery, the pursuit of something he loves, the passion, the not giving up, making it out of whatever he can to make it work. And here we are, 90 some years later, we have this telescope now, and it's going to be on display.
Oh my gosh.
And
I'm
it's
so
so cool. So he used it. The story is so neat because not only he built it out of these cool parts lying around the farm, but he made some really nice drawings with them.
Yeah.
And sent them to Lowell Observatory because he knew about Lowell. He never met our founder, Percival Lowell, who died in 1916, but he knew the work that Percival Lowell did about planets and such.
Well, he knew about the aliens.
About the aliens up there.
The aliens up there. The reason why I have a job is
and I think
because of aliens.
The crop fields in Kansas, there was some connection there too.
Yeah, Clyde was like, ooh, I'm going to go look for these Martians that Percival Lowell is seeing.
There's life out there. So he made these drawings, sent them to Lowell, wondering if, their professional opinion, what do they think?
Yeah.
And he gets this letter back, like, what kind of physical condition are you in?
Yeah.
Like, what?
He's like, what does that have to do with my drawing abilities,
And suddenly he's getting offered a job, temporary, to come out and just, we've got this project going on. Didn't really know what it was. We got this project, we need somebody.
Yeah.
But it's really cool because the timing, if he had written this 6 months earlier or later, he probably wouldn't have gotten a job.
Yeah.
But the observatory was, they're trying to restart the search to look for a planet. And they just happened to be looking for somebody to help with the search. They didn't have anybody on staff that had the time.
Which is crazy.
The director opened his mail one day, and here's this letter from this guy who likes astronomy. It looks like he knows what he's doing.
Right.
He'd be perfect for this.
Yeah. The thing I always think about, this is like my headcanon. I have no proof of this, Kevin, but like I want to see what you think. So Vesto Slifer was the director at the time, right?
Yep.
Vesto and E.C. Slifer were also farm boys, right? They
from
came
Indiana.
from Indiana, yeah. But their farm was doing really well. They had old money, all of that. So they had money to go to college, right? And they got their PhDs and they came out here and they worked for us. Well, part of me thinks that it was perfect timing, but at the same time, part of me thinks because Vesto Slifer asked about Clyde's background and he read, I'm a farm boy and I want to go to the University of Kansas more than anything, but I don't have the money for it, And he saw oh, this kid is going through something very similar to what I did, only like I had the money and I got to go to school and like he doesn't get to. And so I feel like part of him, like, saw a little bit of himself in Clyde. Almost,
it could be. I don't know that Clyde at that early stage talked about wanting to go to college, but still, I can see that because they're both, Midwestern. The Slifer family certainly had more money, but they weren't.
They weren't
filthy
like
rich.
outrageously rich.
And they had like a dozen kids in the family.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because there's still so many Slifers around. And a side note, if you go to Indiana, to Frankfurt, there's a really, what used to be the school is now the city offices. And to get to the Slifer farm is still there. It's still in the family. But to get there, you take a left turn at the Milky Way diner or ice cream shop, whatever it is. It's called the Milky Way, and it's just perfect to get to the house where the guy who discovered the expanding universe.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so
that's so cool.
In Clyde's hometown in Burdett, they do have a miniature golf course that's planet themed.
Aww.
And there's also, when I was there a year ago or whenever it was, in the restaurant, they had a Tombaugh special, like a
That's so
lunch.
Cute. Oh my
and
gosh.
it was like, I grew up in the Midwest, so I can say that it was classic Midwest fare. It was like a layer of tater tots.
Oh, beautiful.
A layer of cheese.
Oh, I'm into it.
A layer of meat. More tater tots, more cheese. I think about 8,000 calories.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Carbohydrate high you would be on. And it was, I couldn't finish it. It was so much.
Yeah.
But you got to have a Tombaugh special if you're going through Burdett, Kansas.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, I love that. But yeah, so we talked a little bit about Clyde's background, him getting up here, right? Vesto Slifer offered him a job. Yeah. He also offered for him to live up here, like there's the Tombaugh apartment. So we still have that, the Tombaugh apartment.
Yeah, I feel fortunate because my office is right across the hall from it.
That's so cool.
And in fact, my office is where a guy named Jim Elliott used to come every summer. He had an affiliation with Lowell.
Oh, cool.
And he's the kind of the father of occultation studies.
Oh,
and
neat.
Pioneered Kuiper Airborne Observatory and later Sophia Airborne Observatory. And so to be in that area, it's like when you come to Lowell, no matter what your age, you really feel you're in a special place.
Absolutely.
Like, my gosh, our founder is buried right there.
Right? Yeah. Like you can literally walk up to Percival Lowell's mausoleum. Right. I mean, not right now because there's so much snow, but like normally.
Yeah, you have to ski there.
Yeah, you'd have to ski there.
Or this telescope, this is where Clyde Tombaugh was standing.
Yeah.
When he took these pictures, he discovered Pluto.
That's so cool.
It's neat. And, Clyde leaving home, it was a big thing because he's from small town America. And, he was like so many of us, growing up. He liked sports. He was in track.
Yeah.
There's a great picture of him with a pole vault when he was in high school. He set up a field on the farm for his buddies to come over and play football, I think it was.
Nice.
So he was like most of us growing up, just, enjoyed time with his friends, had this interest in astronomy. And, a lot of people grow up in dark places on a farm. But for whatever reason, partly because he had an uncle, Uncle Lee, who was kind of an amateur astronomer. He had his own telescope.
Yeah.
And you wonder, I always like looking at this, like Back to the Future.
Yeah.
If you change one thing, how the rest of history would play out.
It'd be so different.
And Back to the Future 4 is apparently, not the kind of cheesy one they made a few years ago, but the next one with Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. Is in production, as I understand.
Ooh, interesting.
So that's like
I wonder what they're going to change this time,
I don't know. But Clyde he's just a guy growing up and has friends, like anybody. But he, partly because of this influence, his uncle in this case, turned him on to looking through telescopes, and Clyde ended up making his own. Yeah. Like the one out of Farm Parts. And it's amazing what the difference one person can make. Like it's
incredible.
It can be a sibling, a parent, of course, a teacher, but how you really get turned on to something. Yeah. And
it's crazy.
And it's there for the rest of your life. For me, I had a high school earth science teacher, and he was great. And I mean, that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. I applied to one college. That's where he went. Nice. That's where I wanted to go.
You were like, this is it?
Yeah. And so it's neat to see, like Clyde, his uncle, you wonder if he has Uncle hadn't done that, what would Clyde have been interested in?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Maybe astronomy, but maybe something else. I don't know. And we wouldn't know his name.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Or we wouldn't have the trivia question, what Cy Young winner is related to Clyde Tombaugh? And it's Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers.
Clayton Kershaw.
We wouldn't have that trivia question either.
That's so funny. But yeah, so Clyde Tombaugh, he came up here, lived here on campus, and he was hired to operate the astrograph as the Pluto Discovery Telescope. Pluto Discovery Astrograph is what we're calling it now because people got a little confused. Because telescope, you think, oh, I can like go look through that, but the Discovery Telescope.
The astrograph clears it up because nobody knows anything about what that is.
Exactly. So they go up there not expecting anything. The astrograph is a big camera, right? So
yeah, it's a telescope that takes pictures.
Exactly.
It depends on who you talk to.
Yes.
But yeah,
I always call it a stellar camera because I think that's like the easiest way to explain it. But yeah, it just takes in those glass plates and everything. But he was like taking the pictures, but not comparing them at first, right?
Yeah, he when he was brought on, they needed somebody to take pictures, but they were going to, the astronomers here were going to do the searching.
Yeah.
But it soon became apparent first, this guy knew what he was doing. He learned the process well. Great attention to detail, but also the time.
Yeah.
Because he would take a picture of the sky, wait a few days, take a picture of the exact same place, and when you magnify these pictures, you take them on these glass plates. It's like a piece of film that are 14 by 17 inches.
Yep.
And on average, you have maybe 200,000 or 300,000 dots.
Yeah.
And that's an area of the sky about this big. So you have to cover a lot of the sky, and when you look at that set of plates, 200,000 or 300,000 dots, to compare one to the other,
Insane.
It's mindlessly, boring, mind-numbing.
Yeah. My brain would melt.
Time,
I could not.
No, yeah. Today we have computers.
Yeah. Clyde was just such a dedicated man.
Yeah.
And the fact that he did that for 6 hours a day at first and then down to 2, but still, even 2 hours is
at some
so
point,
much.
Oh, yeah. And he said, at some point, he would spend, a typical day for him would be to get up in the morning, go downtown Flagstaff, have breakfast at the Black Cat Cafe, which is now Karma Sushi.
Yeah.
And then pick up the mail, which is the mail. The post office then was at what's now Aspen Sports in San Francisco.
Okay.
And they come back up here and go into the office and stare through the eyepiece of this machine called a blink comparator. They're staring at dots, looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
Do that for a few hours, go to lunch, come back, do it for a few more hours. And that was his routine. Then when the skies were clear and moonless, he would also be up at night taking pictures.
Yeah, which is just crazy.
Yeah, the schedule was almost as challenging as the average Lowell Observatory public program educator, in which every day, every night is a new adventure in sleep deprivation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because the schedule's not regular.
Yeah, my schedule is super regular, especially for the week of the I Heart Pluto Festival.
It's regular. You're just here all the time.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I'm working a 12-hour shift that Tuesday, so there's that.
That's not bad.
It's one thing though. I'm doing one thing for 12
There are 24 hours
hours
in a day.
That's true. That's
so
true.
You take away, 3 for sleep. You want more.
Then we're good. Yeah.
There's plenty of time.
Yeah,
You can
maybe
eat
after I'm done, I'll go home and get some more work done or something.
Yeah, it's funny because no matter, here at Lowell, everybody has a position that at some point is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Our grounds crew over the last week in Flagstaff, we've been dumped on snow.
Yeah.
It's snowmageddon, and so they're working really crazy hours. Or, we have a celestial event that's 3:00 in the morning, a total lunar eclipse. We got educators, astronomers, marketing people. Nate, who doesn't sleep, is here.
Nate never sleeps.
No, he doesn't sleep. He just gets special treats from Texas once in a while, and that keeps him going. Charge up.
Kolaches.
Oh, the kolaches, the kalichis, right? Isn't that the stone
close enough.
substrate thing? Yeah, calcium deposit.
In case you guys didn't hear, Nate said close enough. Everybody's got weird hours on certain events and stuff. Yeah,
and so that's what Clyde had. But he's persistent.
Yeah,
and he, attention to detail was great. So
incredible.
This is what he did. This was his being. And then you get to February 18th, 1930. Same routine. He gets up in the morning, goes down, has breakfast, comes back, lunch. And about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he's in his office, which is about 100 yards from where we're sitting.
Yep.
In what's called the Slifer building. And he sees, okay, on this plate, the dot's here. On the other plate, it shifted position. Wasn't unusual.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be an asteroid. Sometimes it would be a piece of lint.
Yeah.
Or, defect in the plates. But, he measured it. Like, wait a minute. Because he had studied this, he knew a planet that they were looking for should be located at a certain distance. So the dot should change a certain amount. And it did.
Yep.
And he calls his colleague, Carl Lamplin, and says, this is cool. Because Carl Lamplin noticed the clicking had stopped for a while.
Yeah, and he was waiting for
what's
Clyde,
happening. And then they look at it for a while, do some measuring, and then you can just imagine Clyde Tombaugh, 24 years old. I'm thinking when I was doing at 24 and I was still drooling.
I'm 24.
Yeah,
Kevin.
see, and you're
look at me.
You're still drooling.
Yeah, pretty much.
So this is your age.
I know. I can't even imagine.
He's walking down the hallway. You wonder what this from one end of the building to the other.
Oh my gosh!
To tell his boss.
Felt like an hour-long walk. I swear.
And you tell him, I think we found what Percival Lowell started looking for 25 years ago.
Insane.
And he passed away. Others have been involved in the search. Now it's Clyde, 24 years old, self-trained at that point. He went to college later.
Yeah.
But self-trained.
That's
and
insane.
he discovered the ninth planet.
That's so crazy.
What's going through his mind?
Honestly, I mean, that's just first off, it's just incredible that you find a planet in the first place. Second off, at that young of an age with no college education, that's crazy. That's so incredible, And
I think it's a kind of a neat angle on the history of Lowell in that self-trained astronomers, our founder, Percival Lowell.
Self-trained astronomer.
I mean, he went to college for mathematics.
Yeah.
But the astronomy part self-trained. But the connection is neat because he was studying Mars, looking for intelligent life there. But he also began this search for a planet. A quarter century later, he's passed away. A quarter century later, this other self-trained guy is brought in, and he completes the search that Lowell started and finds the planet.
That's so cool.
And then he spends another 15 years or 14 years photographing the sky, making a survey of the night sky, jump ahead another quarter century, and another self-trained scientist, Robert Burnham Jr., is hired to continue the work that Clyde Tombaugh started, that it sort of started with Percival Lowell. Yeah. And this legacy of self-trained astronomers.
Incredible.
And that they all made major contributions.
Yeah.
So it shows, I think, that, in the modern world, if you want to study astronomy, generally you're going to go to college. But it also shows that if you have a passion for something, you make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it's not the traditional way, but you can make it happen.
Definitely.
And it's funny with space. There have been times throughout history that, we know all there is to know about the solar system. Like they were thinking the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Get some spacecraft out there and we know we're just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah. Seriously.
So, Clyde, it's a neat story because it's something we can all associate with. And, you might not go into something and discover a planet, but you can still really get into something you really like and make neat contributions.
Yeah, and I think my favorite part of Clyde Tombaugh's story is what happened next. Clyde, he discovers this planet. It goes public. They wait a month to go public with it until March 13th, Percival Lowell's birthday, because they were like, oh, that would be cute, And they also had to take the confirmation photos, and it was cloudy, so they had to wait some days and everything. But I think the best part is when they did go public, Clyde got a full ride acceptance letter to the University of Kansas and got to go study astrophysics and get his degree in astrophysics. And something that I didn't know until recently, Curtis actually told me this, one of the public program supervisors. He told me that he had been telling people for years, oh yeah, can you imagine going into your intro astronomy course and you're sitting next to someone and you're like, oh, how did you get into this? And they're like, oh, I found a planet. That would be nerve-wracking. I would quit college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't let him take intro astronomy, apparently. They made him skip it because of everything he had already done.
Yeah, the story is, Yeah, you're Clyde Tombaugh. You've already passed the class.
Oh yeah, they're like, you've already got an A.
achieved.
Yeah, just to move on,
Yeah.
which I think is hilarious. And I worked here for years before I learned that, which
Well,
I think is so funny.
There's so many neat stories. That
Oh yeah.
I've been here a little bit longer than you have, and maybe as long as you've been alive.
Probably.
No, I think we figured that out. Not quite.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was like a couple years off.
I'll be 28 years in March.
Yeah, and I'm 25
Not
in
quite.
June. So you've
I've
been here longer than I've been alive.
But still, every day there's something new and exciting.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which I just think is so cool. But like, just like the fact that he got his scholarship and got to go study school, which was like one of his dreams, and the fact that like he got to do it for free. I mean, that's so fantastic to me.
Well, he did it without paying tuition, maybe.
Yes.
But
well, not completely for free, but you know what I mean.
You think of he didn't go the traditional route.
Yes.
But he made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
You discover a planet. Okay. I couldn't pay for it, but I discovered a planet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And now he has, his name is such a legacy.
Yeah.
And the foundation of today, of space, we think about the solar system.
Mm-hmm.
And, whatever people call Pluto a planet or not, or whatever, it's great that it's been going on now for 93 years of what to call this thing.
Yeah.
And it continues on. And it's
Crazy.
also, the discovery of Pluto really told us that the solar system is much larger and there's more out there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's neat, scientifically, but also the cultural thing.
Yeah.
Because like Flagstaff is home of Pluto, because all these scientific connections, but also this place loves its science.
Oh, yeah.
And so you have artists like George Averbeck creating glass ornaments of the planets, or ceramic artists like Paula Rice making these really amazing sculptures of planets, and breweries and restaurants making Pluto-themed drinks and food. It's just so cool.
It's so cool.
And so it's the science that's really that starts it, but it really turns into a cultural thing, an identity for the place.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And and we're all part of that. Clyde Tombaugh with his discovery started it in terms of Pluto. But there, Lowell Observatory, there's so many different personal stories and angles.
Absolutely.
That you think about if you talk about Pluto, you got to talk about Lowell Observatory.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Mars, especially if you get into projections of life, you got to talk about Percival Lowell.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's pretty awesome.
It is really cool.
This observatory that was self-started by an individual, and Percival Lowell left quite a legacy himself.
No, it's crazy. It's super cool. And then, of course, Clyde's later life was also interesting. I mean, he built telescopes in his backyard for fun. He founded the PhD program at New Mexico State University for their astrophysics program.
Yeah.
Right?
He spent years looking for UFOs.
Yeah, looking for UFOs.
Like not crackpot sort of things, but, really looking for serious, are these things out there? And he did satellite tracking at White Sands. I was just at the missile range earlier this year.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the machines he used, I can't remember what the nickname is, but anyways, it's like this. It was designed to, follow rockets.
Yeah.
And that's something he did to and making the suggestion of painting them a certain pattern so you could view them easier.
Yeah.
If you can view and study celestial objects, you can probably track a rocket.
Oh yeah.
So it's really neat. Yeah, some of that stuff he did.
So cool. And then we've got this video of him that some of the educators have watched for like training and stuff. But it's Clyde Tombaugh in his like 80s or 90s. He's cute little old man, hunched over, walking around, talking about the telescopes in his backyard, like what size they are, how he made them, talking about his discovery and everything. And it's like one of my favorite videos ever.
And it's great because it's his backyard in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And he had this big tower that he built. Yeah. So he had the smaller telescopes, but then he'd climb up there. And even in later life, he would, he's climbing a ladder to get up there.
Yeah.
Like, don't slip, Clyde.
I know.
But, he didn't let that get in his way.
Yeah. And then, of course, my favorite thing to tell guests on my Pluto tour is that Clyde passed away in 1997. And when New Horizons launched in 2006, they actually put some of Clyde's ashes on the New Horizons mission, which I just thought was like the sweetest thing ever. I mean, they like sent Clyde out to the planet he found, you know?
You know, there was so much thought, and I think Alan Stern certainly deserves so much credit, and he'd be the first to say it was a team of people, but he really gets that personal side of things.
Yeah.
And so he had met Clyde earlier, but it's neat because they got some of his ashes on there, and then at the launch of New Horizons, his widow, Patsy, was there. And by the time New Horizons flew by, she was gone. But in mission control, during the flyby, both the Tombaugh kids, Al and Annette, were there. And I was there, and I got to watch all this. And it was so cool because they had this countdown of when the beep would come back.
Oh, yeah.
Signifying that New Horizons was alive and going well and had passed Pluto. And as this was happening, I was looking at Tombaugh kids because for everybody else, especially the scientists and engineers, the spacecraft flew by Pluto. Soon we're going to see pictures.
Yeah.
But for them, Dad just made it. He just flew by Pluto.
You're going to make me cry, Kevin.
And I remember just watching them. And then another poignant moment during that was, I can't remember the timing if it was the next day, but when the first close-up image of all things, there's this heart-shaped feature.
Yeah.
And they're up on stage, NASA TV's going, and the Tombaugh kids are over here, and they announce, we're going to name this in honor of the planet's founder, Clyde Tombaugh Regio. And again, the family's there, and I choke up. Oh, it was great.
I'm literally crying right now, Kevin. I cry during like all of my Pluto tours, I swear. I talk about how they put Clyde's ashes on and how he got the full ride scholarship and everything, and I start like tearing up every time because it's just like such an inspirational story and like such an incredible man, you know?
I think that's why it resonates, why it so much, because it's something we can appreciate.
Exactly.
It's just this guy, he was a neighbor of ours, essentially, that grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
He discovers this planet, and then the story continues, the connection, the heart-shaped feature, and Pluto was discovered February 18th, just 4 days after Valentine's Day.
Aww.
And what's the symbol of Pluto? The heart.
The heart.
It's just, as they say, you can't make this stuff up.
Honestly, yeah. It's just like, I don't know. The whole story is just so incredible. And like, I've been working here for 6 years and I never get tired of talking about this.
Yeah.
You know, I've like I said, I've been excited to do this episode for months now, honestly. Like since we started planning it, I made this outline like right away. I was so excited.
The outline that I'm getting us off very well, probably.
Oh, our outline, I mean, the outline is basically what we're saying. It just has dates in it because basically I was just planning on talking about everything I knew about Clyde and everything, but I have a hard time remembering certain dates. Things like we've got like his kids' birth dates and stuff in here, you know what I mean? So yeah. So like he finds Pluto in 1930. His daughter Annette was born in 1940. Al was born in 1945, you know, so 10, 15 years after.
And you know, he had lived up here on the hill in an apartment that's now called the Tombaugh apartment.
Yes.
That guests stay in occasionally. I mean, scientists and such.
Yeah.
And then they lived in a different house up here, the one right next to the Slifer building.
Yeah.
And then they left and came back, and they lived in a house downtown.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that house is still there.
Oh, wow.
And a couple of years ago, we took the Tombaughs down there.
Aww.
And Annette was old enough to remember, like, this is where Grandma stayed.
Yeah.
This was my room. That was Mom and Dad's room.
You told me this story, yeah.
Yeah, and it was neat to, again, Al didn't remember. He was too young to remember. But then Annette remembered some of those aspects of it. And it was neat also as the house had been moved. It had been on Aspen Street.
Yeah.
And then it was going to be torn down, and a local resident purchased it for not much. I think it was not much money, but he had to move it.
Yeah.
So he moved the house to a different street. But it's just neat to be able to see them see it. And then the last time they were in town, we went over to Tombaugh Way, which is a street here in town named after him.
So sweet.
So there's so much connection with him, Yeah, and
his kids are fantastic. I mean, we still talk to them. When I was working with philanthropy for a while, I ended up calling Annette a couple times. I was like thanking people for memberships and stuff. And we get a lot of people with last names of like Slifer and Tombaugh and everything. And I was like, I wasn't super new here, but I was new enough to where I didn't really know all of the important names. So I got to talk to a lot of really cool people, and like halfway through, they're like, "Oh yeah, like Clyde Tombaugh was my dad," or like Vestus Slifer was my uncle, and I'm like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah,
So
there's neat connections, and it's really important for us to keep those
Yeah,
connections,
which I think is great.
Yeah, it's part of the legacy.
Yeah.
and the fact that Lowell is this family focused place. You know, it's run by the family, the Lowell family.
Yeah.
That's the Putnams are like sole trustee right now, but it's family, and having, you know, the Lamplins and Slifers and Tombaughs, and in more
Yeah.
recent times, you know, families that stay connected to the place.
Yeah.
Moon mappers that were here in the 60s
Yeah.
that we've reconnected with and their families.
Like Bob Malfair.
Bob Mulfair, Lunar Bob.
Yeah.
I just talked to him yesterday.
Oh,
actually.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the people who I ended up calling, and I was like, I recognize your name. I've talked about you numerous times.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
And he's got a bench waiting to be installed until spring.
Yeah.
It's still in the shop because there's a little bit of snow in the way.
Yeah, just bit.
But that's part of what's so neat about Lowell is that heritage, and it's so personal because of families. And
Absolutely.
I think one of the great things, I've worked in public program for 15 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And every once in a while somebody come in that's how I met some of the folks. It was, oh, my name is so-and-so. My dad was you're who?
Yeah, right.
How cool is that?
I know. You always end up introducing me to people. It's so funny. Like when Clyde's nephew was here, and I was
Yes.
like leaving my car in the parking lot, and you flagged me down, and you were like, "Hey, Haley, I want you to meet these people." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Who's this?" And you're like, "Oh, they're related to Clyde Tombaugh." And I was like, "What? That's so cool."
And I think that's one of the things, like the educators, you work with a lot of different people, but
Yeah.
being able to make a connection, because I think, I mean, for you giving a tour now, it's much more personal.
Yeah.
Having met family members.
Exactly. Yeah. I've met Alden. I've talked to Annette, his nephew and his wife. I've talked to them, and
Yeah.
it's just like, it makes it that much better. Cause like, I've always loved Clyde Tombaugh's story, but now that I like know people who were related to him or knew him, I mean, that's just like so
Oh, it's
cool.
neat. And, you know, when you have those connections, like when I was at the homestead where Clyde grew up in Burdett a couple of years ago, it's in the middle of nowhere, but you can get a phone signal.
Yeah.
You know, I can't get one from my office. Sometimes
Yeah.
we're in the middle of this cornfield in Kansas, but I called Al, and I say, I'm calling from where your dad grew up, but I'm trying to figure out where the telescopes were and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was really neat. I wish he was there.
Of course.
But he said, you know, he told me he wasn't sure if he'd want to see it because it changed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it stayed in the family for a long time, but,
Yeah.
you know, they expanded, it changed, and so it's a lot different. But the storm cellar that Clyde built that could serve as a storm cellar and a place to put the milk and eggs
Yeah.
in the summer, but he wanted it to build his telescopes because the first telescope he built to measure the accuracy of how well he ground the mirror, you do this test called knife edge test, and the conditions, the error has to be really still.
Yeah.
And so he found that in the kitchen that didn't work. So dig a little pit
Yeah.
and this cellar, and down a few feet under, the air currents and everything are real stable. So you have real
Nice.
still air.
Aw. That's so cool.
Yeah. And I will say that in what I just said, I gave a hint of what the beer name is, but I'm not going to completely say what it is yet because it's not official.
I know what you're talking about. Cool.
So
my gosh.
soon we'll be able to announce that.
Yes, soon. So if you guys are in Flagstaff, come check out the I Heart Pluto Festival. We're gonna have so much cool stuff going on. I'm very excited. And if you end up going to Astronomy on Tap, you'll see me and Kevin there, and
Al Tombaugh.
and Al Tombaugh.
We're going to tag team on a program and
Yeah,
talk about his dad and
I'm so excited.
beer.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's gonna be great.
And speaking of beer, this is from Clyde Tombaugh
Okay.
because he told really horrible puns.
Oh yes, my favorite. I knew
Where,
I liked him.
Where do crows drink their I Heart Pluto beer?
Where?
At a crow bar.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So they're painful, depending on what you think about puns.
Oh, I love puns.
But he has in fact, I can't remember if we posted these. Oh, they're in one of the Lowell Observers that's now on the website. But it has a bunch of his crow puns. And they're all painful. They're just groaners.
I mean, one of my favorite jokes to tell up here is if a guest walks up to the telescope that I'm operating and goes like, "Oh, what's this?" I say, "A telescope." Even though I know that they're asking what we're looking at, I'm like, "Oh, it's a telescope." And like half the time people will laugh hysterically and the other half the time people just don't understand. And I'm always so sad when that happens. But my favorite time
let me go back on this and explain.
But like my favorite time I ever told that joke was like, there was only like a few people up at the open deck observatory and this guy comes up and he's like, "Oh, what's this?" And I go, "A telescope." And the lady behind him laughed so hard that the entire, like the whole plaza started laughing. And I was just like, yes, that was beautiful.
That's what you live for, those moments.
I'm never going to top that, you know, because it was like just quiet enough to where like everybody heard me say it and everybody started laughing. And I was like, yes,
that's how it should be. And, you know, we could go on talking all day about this, but it looks like we're winding down on time.
Yeah, I think we're about
Nate
out of time.
just threw an asteroid at me.
I know. Nate's like, hey, shh. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for listening to us talk about Clyde Tombaugh. Thank you, Kevin, for being here.
Oh, that's great. It was fun stuff.
Was really excited. Cody called me and was like, "Hey, do you mind if Kevin steps in for me?" And I was like, I could talk about Clyde Tombaugh with Kevin for like 5 hours. So we're going to have to set a timer.
Well, that's been fun. Yeah, there's so much great stuff. And we'll be talking about more at the iHeart Pluto Festival.
Yes, exactly. I'm very excited. So if you guys are in town, the iHeart Pluto Festival, the special Astronomy on Tap with Kevin and Alden is going to happen on February 16th. We're going to have a Pluto pub crawl on February 17th. That's going to be really fun. I just got involved in that. People are doing specialty cocktails and things downtown. It'll be great. And then the 18th through the 20th, we'll be doing some special events up here at Lowell Observatory. And if you want more information, you can check out our website. We have a whole page dedicated to the iHeart Pluto Festival this year. And as always, thank you guys for listening to the podcast Star Stuff, a Space Podity. If you guys want more behind the scenes astronomical content or to just chat about your favorite things, go ahead and join our Discord server. The link is on our website. So thank you so much for coming and thank you so much for being here, Kevin.
Thanks. It's been fun.
Awesome. All right. Bye, guys.
This podcast was made possible by our members and donors. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support our nonprofit in making more digital education like this available, go to lowell.edu/donate. Thanks for listening.